guys, welcome back to Good Eats with Ashley. Today we are going to be making salted caramel chocolate chip cookies that are absolutely delicious. So I'm going to start off by going through the ingredients that you're going to need for this dish. So you're going to need some all-purpose flour, brown sugar, you're going to need instant vanilla pudding mix, butter, sugar, salt, vanilla, baking soda, caramel bits, semi-sweet chocolate chips, and then sea salt. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are going to start off by sifting the dry ingredients. So I don't have an actual sifter, I just use this wire mesh strainer and it works perfectly fine, just sifting the ingredients. So I'm going to start off by doing my dry ingredients, and the reason that I'm sifting them is just so that it makes the dry ingredients really fluffy and light and airy, which creates light and airy cookies, so they're not going to be really flat and thin. So I'm going to start off with 2 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to pour this into the mesh strainer, and I'm just going to slowly tap that in, and it's just going to slowly get the flour in through the mesh strainer. You can also use like a spoon to kind of press down the flour to get it through the mesh strainer. If you do have a sifter, you can totally use that as well, but really you can use whatever you have that works to sift the dry ingredients. So I'm just going to continue tapping the flour and getting it in here. As you can see, the flour is getting really nice and light and airy in here, and it's kind of getting rid of the clumps and just making it nice and light and airy. So now that I've added my flour, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of baking soda, and that is a very important ingredient in the cookies. Then I'm going to add in a teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to get that in there. Use my spoon. You'll have a few little like clumps that kind of clump up as you're doing it, so just take a spoon and just press those through the mesh strainer as they go, and then you'll get those clumps out. And then the most important ingredient of this cookie recipe is using instant vanilla pudding mix. And this gets the cookies really poofy and fluffy, and it gives them a really nice vanilla flavor. So you can just get this package, and you want to make sure that you get 3.4 ounces, and it needs to be the instant vanilla pudding mix. And I'm going to sift this as well because it is a part of the dry ingredients. So just kind of shake that in there. And then now I have all of my dry ingredients sifted in here, and you can see that they are very light. Flour, all the dry ingredients are very light and airy and powdery. That's going to cause the cookies to be really nice and fluffy. So now that we have our dry ingredients ready, we're going to set that aside and we're going to start working on our wet ingredients. So I've set out 2 sticks of salted butter, and they've been softening, so they're really, really soft and ready to go. It's important that you soften your butter so that the butter doesn't form clumps. It'll just form a nice creamy mixture. So now that I have my 2 sticks of butter in here, I'm going to just turn on the mixer, and the important part of cookies is you want to cream the wet ingredients. So I'm mixing the butter, and it's really, really soft, so it's creaming very nicely. And so once I've done that just for probably about like 30 seconds, the butter, it was so soft, so it's really creamy and soft and ready to go. So I'm going to add in 3/4 cup of granulated white sugar, and then I'm going to add in 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And you want to make sure the brown sugar that you pack it into the measuring cup, so that you get it really nicely in there. And now I'm going to turn the mixer back on. And this will probably take like 1 to 2 minutes to get it fully combined. But again, you're going to be creaming this mixture, creaming the butter and the sugars together, and allowing them to combine. Alright, and so now that I've done that, I'm going to add in my teaspoon of vanilla. So I'll pour that in there and then continue mixing. Alright, so now that I've mixed in the softened butter, the granulated white sugar, brown sugar, and vanilla, I'm going to go ahead and lift up the mixer, and I'm just going to scrape the sides and scrape the paddle, and this just ensures that everything is mixed in evenly, and that it's all like distributed throughout the mixture, so that you don't have clumps of brown sugar in one spot, and this just makes an even mixture. I'm actually gonna show you guys what this looks like. So it's just gonna be a nice light brown color, and you can see that everything's really soft and mixed together. So now that I've scraped the sides and the paddle, I'm just gonna then mix for probably about another minute. Okay, that looks good. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep the mixer on low, the lowest speed, and I'm gonna add in my eggs. So it's important that you add in the eggs one at a time. So we've got 2 eggs, so I'm gonna add them each in one at a time, and that's just gonna allow them to evenly mix throughout the mixture. So you want to do, like, keep mixing until you don't really see the egg anymore. So if you still kind of see like the yellowish oak, then you want to allow it to continue to mix. And you can even turn it up to the second speed just so it really gets mixed up, and then I'll turn it down to the lower speed so that I can mix in the next egg. All right, and I'll turn the speed up again just so that it can get all mixed in. Alright, and then I'm going to turn it off and scrape the sides again. And again, that is just for the mixture to be evenly mixed. Perfect. So now I'm going to add in our dry ingredients that we set aside and sifted. And again, the most important thing when you're adding in your dry ingredients is you just want it to be on the lowest level, because otherwise you will have flour go everywhere, which is not good. So I'm just going to slowly pour in the dry ingredients. And I'll just pour a little bit in, and then I'll let it mix. And the flour, when you're incorporating the dry ingredients, it does take a little bit to mix into the wet ingredients. So if it looks really dry at first, don't worry, you're okay. Because it just takes a little bit for it to totally mix in. And then once it starts kind of getting that light beige color in, then I'll add more flour, more of the dry ingredients. And I kind of do this in like 3 stages just to allow it to all form in together. And as you're adding the flour, it will kind of form into this like ball on the paddle, and that's a good sign. All right, and then I'll add this last little bit of the flour. And I can actually go ahead and turn the mixer up a little bit just to get it all fully combined. And you kind of want to do this for about a minute. All right, and then I'm going to scrape the sides again. It's very important to scrape the sides all throughout the process. All right, so that's what it looks like. It looks a lot thicker, and you can see that it's really that light beige color. Okay, so now I'm going to add in the add-ins for the cookie dough. So we have our basic cookie dough done, and these are salted caramel chocolate chip cookies. So I have right here, I have some caramel bits, and I'm gonna go ahead and add those in. And then I'm gonna add in, so I probably added about a cup and a half of the caramel bits. It kind of depends if you want your cookies really caramely or if you want more of a chocolate side. And then I'm gonna add in about a cup to cup and a half of chocolate chips. And then I'm just gonna turn the mixer on really low because I don't want the mixer to break up the chocolate and caramel too much. I just want it to get it so that they're barely mixed together. Okay, and I'll scrape. The caramel just adds really good flavor with the chocolate, and it makes it really, really, really delicious. All right, so I'll stir one more time again on the lowest speed. All right, and it is all ready to go. Now the next stage of making these cookies, and I do this with all of my cookie doughs, is to chill the dough. It really makes the dough a lot better, and when they bake in the oven, they're very poofy and they don't flatten out. So it's a really, really important part of the cookie baking process. So what you can do is you can leave the cookie dough in the bowl that it's in and just put plastic wrap over it and freeze and put it in the fridge. Or what you can do is scoop out your balls. It kind of depends on what your time restraints are. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna chill the whole thing just because I have some time that I can do that. So I'm just gonna put some plastic wrap over the top. As you can see, this is what the cookie dough is going to look like. So you have your chocolate chips in there, you can see the caramel bits. It looks so, so good. It's very tempting to eat. All right, so I'm just gonna put the plastic wrap on the top and stick it in the fridge, and that will allow it to chill and all of the flavors to combine. So now that I have the plastic wrap on, I'm gonna stick it in the fridge for probably about 30 to 45 minutes, just until the dough is nice and chilled. Okay, so the cookie dough has been chilling in the fridge, and so I'm gonna take the plastic wrap off, and I have preheated my oven to 350 degrees. She kept it. We're filming. Hey guys, hey! Okay, so now that the cookie dough has chilled in the fridge, we are ready to start scooping them onto the pan. I preheated the oven to 350 degrees. So on this, I just have a regular cookie sheet, and I just have a baking mat on here because the caramel, when it melts in the oven, sticks really bad to the pan and can sometimes burn a little bit. So it's important to have either a cooking mat, or you can put like parchment paper down, stuff like that. So I'm gonna use a cookie scoop to scoop out all my cookies. You can also just use like a regular spoon and scoop them out and roll them into a ball. But if you do have a cookie scoop, you can use that as well, which makes it a lot easier. All right, so now I have all of the cookie balls in here, and I still have some cookie dough in here. And while this is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in the fridge to cook in a little bit, and I'll probably freeze some of the balls anyway so that I don't use them all right now. And then the important part is that I'm just gonna kind of press down a little bit and flatten them just slightly. And you don't wanna do this too much. You just wanna kind of form like a flattened top, so that we can add our sea salt on top. And that is going to be the salt aspect of the salted caramel cookies. So I have some sea salt in here, and so for each one I'm just gonna do a slight pinch. You don't wanna do too much, just because you don't want them to be too salty because they already have salt in here, but you want enough so that you do notice that crunchy salt on the top. So now that the salt is on each of the cookies, I'm just gonna kind of go through and just do a slight press so that it sticks to the dough, and so then it doesn't totally fall off. And so now we have all of the cookie balls ready to go, and I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the oven for, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 5 minutes on the bottom shelf, and that's gonna get a nice layer on the bottom, and then we'll move them up to the top shelf to finish them off cooking. All right, so I'm gonna put them in the bottom shelf for about 5 minutes. Okay, so the timer just went off for the 5 minutes, so you can see that they're nice and golden on the bottom. And so now I'm gonna move them up to the top rack, and they're gonna bake for another 5 to 7 minutes. All right, so the cookies are all done, and they've been sitting on the pan for about a couple minutes now, just so they could cool just a little bit. They're still pretty warm, so I'm gonna move them over to the cooling rack. And the caramel is gonna be pretty liquidy, so they're kind of a little bit of a challenge to move to the cooling rack because it's very sticky and they're very warm. So I'm gonna continue moving this over. I hope you guys liked this recipe, and I hope you try it out at home because it is really, really delicious, especially if you like chocolate and caramel. It's a super easy cookie recipe, and I hope that you enjoyed. So give this video a like and subscribe for more videos. Bye guys.